Hi, my name is Chris Klein. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes with you to show you what I've learned about digital whiteboarding and how you can use these tools to do some really interesting whiteboard presentations that increases the collaboration, particularly in large group meetings. Let's get started. Does this look familiar at all? I was looking through my phone recently and noticed I had a big collection of photos that I've taken of whiteboards from various meetings. In many cases, I intended to do something with those or to repeat them or to clean them up, and rarely, if ever, have I gone back to do so. The trouble with these images is that they're not easily cataloged. They're difficult to search, reuse, and they just look kind of clunky. I'd like to show you a better way. Here's a better solution. This is an image taken now as a time-lapse video from a recent conversation I had with a customer, where you can actually see the progression of the conversation that I had. You can see the multiple colors, the shapes, and so on. And even though I'm really not a gifted artist at all, this is a fantastic way to walk a customer through a potential idea or presentation. Why are these whiteboards so powerful, done this way? Well, as you know, many rooms lack good whiteboards. Maybe they're small, they're in the corner, they have years of non-erasable content on them. You go to use the markers and they're all dried out. You just can't trust them. When you get to a large audience, using the projector is much more efficient than a flip chart in the corner of the room. You want to bring the audience in. In addition, sometimes you feel like you can't use whiteboards when you're presenting remotely, and the kind of conversation that you would have in person isn't the same conversation that you would have if you were doing a web meeting. No longer. Now you can use the same handwriting and gestures and drawings as you would do if you were in front of the customer. More importantly, these drawings are preserved now. They can be shared out as high-fidelity images, so we don't have to take photos of ugly drawings. It also allows us in complex drawings to start midstream. That is, we can have an architecture diagram that we begin with, for example, and we can just start the salient part of the conversation and get immediately to the part that's important. By doing it this way, it gives us mobility. We can walk around. I can walk around the room with my tablet, and I can look at my audience, I can interact with them directly, I can take their feedback into the conversation while still allowing them to see the detail of the drawing. This keeps your audience engaged. It's fresh, it's interesting, it helps them to remember more the content that you're delivering, and really helps you to be depicted as a cool kid. So how does this work? Well, I'm going to show you by using a demo of the tool to show you about the tool. Let's get started. Okay, I'd like to show you how the digital whiteboard gets set up, and the best way to show how it's set up and to depict the architecture for you is to actually use the tools to explain it. So I'm going to come in here to my tool called Adobe Sketch, and this is my drawing program, and we're going to open up a new canvas here, and I like to use the iPad Pro format. And in our story here, we're starting with a tablet, so I'm going to just draw a tablet here. And my tablet happens to be an iPad, but the tablet could be an Android device as well. And so we can draw that on here. So we'll say Apple or Android. And you'll notice that I have different pens on the side over here, different brushes. And if you hold down on these brushes, you can control their style, size, color, any of those kinds of things. There's lots of different things, but what I've found works really well for a whiteboard is just to use simply an ink pen in a variety of different colors. And the tablet then is going to connect to, ultimately, a PC laptop, your traditional workstation, and that's going to connect over a common Wi-Fi. That's important. So if you have some sort of Wi-Fi isolation in your network, which is not usually the case for corporate networks, but is very often the case for guest Wi-Fis, then this doesn't work. Then the PC or laptop will ultimately connect out to a traditional projector, if you're presenting in a meeting, or maybe to some sort of a web meeting, WebEx, GoToMeeting, anything like that. So just like you traditionally would share off of your machine. And so we're effectively airplaying or casting the data straight off the tablet. And this does work just fine with either kind of an operating system. So the steps to get this set up now are that the first thing you'll want is Adobe Sketch. That's the one that I recommend. It is free, at least for the features that I use, and it's very feature rich. It's got all kinds of drawing tools. You can do shapes, you can do layers. It'll even record what you're drawing in a time lapse, and that time lapse could ultimately be shared out in different formats. You can do animated GIFs if you want with it in the end. It's really powerful to save those things. So I would download that onto the tablet. The second thing that you'll want to take a look at then over here is something called Reflector. Reflector is from a company called airsquirrels.com, and it's a $15 purchase, and it allows you to take both iOS and Android via a Chromecast or an AirPlay delivery onto the app. You can see that's what I'm using right now on this screen. You can do full screen, part screens, record the screen. It's got a variety of different capabilities. It's real inexpensive, and I think it's indispensable for someone who's out with customers all the time. So what do you do if you're connected to a guest Wi-Fi network, maybe at a hotel or maybe you're visiting a client, and it doesn't provide common Wi-Fi, meaning there's Wi-Fi isolation where clients cannot see each other? Well, it turns out the answer is actually pretty simple. Where the isolation is not allowing you to share, then what you could simply do is get your phone, tablet, or other data device, and you can tether to it from each device. So from your laptop as well as from the mobile device. I usually just tether onto my phone. And the LANs that are a part of tethering don't have any isolation on them, and they'll allow you to go ahead and share as I'm depicting here. Now that you've seen the demo, I'll give you a few useful tips of things that I've learned over the last few years of using this. First of all, set your tablet with a rotation lock. In Apple, you swipe up from the bottom, and it's the upper rightmost button. The rotation lock keeps the image stable while you're walking around the room or as you shift the tablet, keeping the focus on the content and not on the technology. Next, to repeat, your Wi-Fi network needs to be set up with no client isolation. That is, your tablet and your laptop need to be connected together with no restriction. If the guest network that you're using at a hotel or at a customer site doesn't provide that, then I recommend that you tether to your phone, which will provide an isolation-free connection that should allow this technology to work no problem. Next, I recommend that you set your brushes up ahead of time. Anything that takes away from your presentation, such as configuration items, is going to cause people to forget the message that you're sharing. So take a few minutes ahead of time, set up the colors and the brush styles and so on so that you can get straight to work when you open the tool. Also, be sure you charge your stylus ahead of time. If it sits in your bag for weeks or months and you pull it out with no warning, it probably will be dead, and that'll add friction to your presentation. To that end, I recommend that you practice this whole technique a few times. Find where the obstacles would be in your own delivery and practice until you feel comfortable. Next, as I mentioned earlier about going mobile, here's a tool that I've used for the last few years. This particular one is called Padlet, and it's an elastic-like device that straps to the tablet that gives you a good solid handhold while you're drawing as you move around a room. It's not something that I use in every meeting, but in large group meetings it's really useful and helps me to keep the focus on the message and not on manipulating the tablet and changing settings and so on. When you're done with the meeting, I recommend that you share your images with the audience. Send them out as a way to remember the conversation that you had, maybe in addition to or even in place of the traditional PowerPoint that you might send out. And as you think about how to use these whiteboards, think about how you might enable other multimedia and presentation tools as well. Keynote and PowerPoint work on your tablets now, but you also can get into using other kinds of pictures. You can get into iMovie. You can do a variety of things that are mobile friendly that really separate you from the majority of presentations that your customers might see. Remember, customers remember how you make them feel, not just what you said to them. And this is a way that you can share a message with them in a fresh and interesting way that focuses on the speaker and not so much on the content. I hope you found these tips useful. I'm interested in your feedback. Please add some comments to let me know what your experience is. And if you have an idea that others would benefit from, post it here as well. Thanks. Good luck in your presentations.